wandering around.
I think it's always the third, I don't know, about the third Thursday or something like that. I'm not sure offhand.
So that would be. So it wouldn't be this Thursday, would it? Oh, it could be.
Be so kind as to do the Pledge of Allegiance?
I'd be happy to.
Oh, that would be lovely. No sign yet of Buffy. Is that Dean Wallace who just walked in? I think it is. Yes.
We should start and
What?
we should just start and
Of course.
fit her in when she gets here.
Yes.
You're gonna let the announce it, not TV, so
Yeah. I have that as a.
I'm looking at that crowd, and
Yeah.
they might want to know sooner as opposed to.
Yeah, absolutely. That's number 10. Oh, maybe I already took it off my list. Good evening. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the City Council meeting for Monday, June 17th, 2019. And oh my goodness, hello, welcome. Your perfect timing. We're just calling the meeting to order. And what? So let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Assembly Member Wicks, would you like to lead us? I should tell you that we use the traditional Pledge of Allegiance, which is the version before the words "under God" were added. Okay.
So don't say under God. That's what
It's entirely up to you, but that's our custom.
you know, it's funny, we do this at the assembly every day, and I haven't done the Pledge of Allegiance since like school, you know? Now I do it every single day, so.
Yeah.
I'm used to it. Please place your hand over your heart and follow me. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Barnes.
Here.
Councilmember Moss.
Here.
Councilmember Pilch.
Present.
Vice Mayor McQuay. Here. Mayor Neilson.
Here. And we'll start with ceremonial matters. It is my great pleasure to welcome Assembly Member Buffy Wicks, who represents our Assembly District number 15 in the California Legislature. Although Assemblymember Wicks was recently elected, she has already compiled an extremely impressive record of accomplishments in her first session on issues as diverse as blocking rent gouging, preventing gun violence, supporting the physical and mental health of our children and youth, protecting our privacy, and expediting the development of housing for both low-income and middle-class Californians. That's not all, but those are the highlights. A few months ago, Vice Mayor McQuaid and I had the opportunity to visit her office, which was new, and they're still putting things up on the walls. We were there to thank her for her work on behalf of Albany and chat about Albany's interests in the California Legislature. But as we looked at the walls, we discussed how nice it would be to have a picture of the Albany waterfront there for the member, her staff, and the public to be reminded of this very special place. So Vice Mayor McQuaid asked Doug Donaldson, our local photographer and friend of the Albany waterfront, to take and frame a photo we could present to her, and here we are. And it is just great to have a chance not only to present the photo, but to convey our appreciation for her aggressive, bold, and progressive leadership in representing our community where it counts so much. thank you from the City of Albany. I'd appreciate your joining Vice Mayor McQuaid, Doug Donaldson, and I at the podium.
Oh, this is lovely.
Thank you. Oh, one more. Okay. Yeah.
It's very meta, you know. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you guys very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have another ceremonial matter, a proclamation of Albany Gay Pride Days. And, you know, this actually kind of goes with something that we're going to pull off consent. So if those who are here for the Gay Pride proclamation don't mind waiting a moment, I think we will move ahead to the consent calendar and take it up in that context. So let's go ahead to the consent calendar. The consent calendar items are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted in one motion. By approval of the consent calendar, the staff recommendations will be adopted unless otherwise modified by the City Council. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a City Council member or a member of the audience requests removal of the items from the consent calendar. I have a couple to pull. As I said, I'm going to pull 514 and also 58. And I think that Mr. Pilch has made a request before the meeting to pull 515. Does anyone else on the council or in the audience want to pull an item?
Could I make a point of order?
Not yet. I know what you're going to say, but it's about Neilson, right?
Yeah, it was,
Okay. For those who are here, you want to do it, or do you? What's your wish?
you do it. You're the mayor. You do it.
Okay. Before we start, first, let's finish this request. Does anybody have anything they want to pull from the consent calendar? No. Okay. So before we oh, you have one.
Yeah, I have two more, 510 and 513.
Okay. 510 and 513. Does anyone in the audience have anything else? Okay. For anyone who is here for item 9-2, which is the appeal of the design review and parking reduction for a secondary addition at 1115 Neilson. If you're here as a member of the Neilson neighborhood, please be aware that that appeal is not going to be heard tonight. It will be at our next meeting. And of course, you're welcome to stay, but if you're here just for that item, don't be hesitant to step out. Okay, so let's go. I'm going to, oh, anything else? No other?
No.
Okay, just to be sure. Okay, I'm going to suggest that we go straight to 514, and then we'll cycle back to 58, 510, and 513. But let's go ahead with the ceremonial proclamation and the consent item. So, may I ask Judy Kerr to join me at the podium. All things ceremonial are pink. We'll make pink our council color. Some 5 years ago, Judy Kerr asked the City Council, I can't say us, it was before my time, asked for us to raise the pride flag over City Hall to recognize the legalization of gay marriage, or I shouldn't say legalization, but legal recognition of what was already a fact of gay marriage. And unfortunately, the way that it was framed at that time was as a kind of public forum thing, that we would make the flagpole available to outside groups that were interested in flying a flag. And it turned out that created a problem, which is that that then if somebody came in and wanted to fly the Confederate flag, they might have a free speech right to participate in the forum that way. So I'm making clear tonight that we are hoping to, as the council will take up flying the flag as a matter of government speech, as our own speech, rather than as a matter for any outside person. But I've asked Judy Kerr up here to accept this proclamation because she was the person who initiated the request. City of Albany Proclamation. In recognition of June 28th to June 30th, 2019 as Albany Pride Days. Whereas the City of Albany and its residents strive to foster a diverse and inclusive community. And whereas the residents of the City of Albany recognize that we enhance our potential as a city when we honor, celebrate, and include all members of our community. And whereas, by virtue of the presence of LGBTQ+ people in all nations, races, cultures, and creeds, and across human history, we know the land on which we live and on which Albany has been built has been home to LGBTQ+ people as long as it has been occupied by human beings. And whereas, over the past half century, Albany has a history of LGBTQ and plus community activity and individual activism, as exemplified by the famous Bacchanal Bar for and by women, which served as a social and cultural hub for lesbian women for many years, and by the role of Albany's Perry Steer family as lead plaintiffs in the federal legal challenge to California's Proposition 8 decision. And whereas June 28, 2019 marks the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall Rebellion in Greenwich Village, New York City, which is widely considered the galvanizing moment that energized the nascent LGBTQ+ pride civil rights movement nationwide. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that Albany will celebrate Albany Pride Days from the Stonewall Rebellion 50th anniversary on June 28, 2019, through the final Sunday of Pride Month on June 30th, 2019. Thank you.
So, Mayor Neilson and Council, and staff, and most especially friends and family and people of Albany, just want to thank you for recognizing that this is an important thing to say and an important thing to do, and just want to reflect a little bit on why this matters to me. I've been very moved over the years by the concept of intersectionality and how we all struggle and we all kind of have our own issues, and we really try to find a way to come together on all of those issues. And Audre Lorde, who was an inspiration to me, said in 1982, and this is what the rainbow flag means to me, "There is no such thing as a single issue struggle, because we do not lead single issue lives." Malcolm knew this, Martin Luther King Jr. knew this. Our struggles are particular, but we are not alone. So in honor of that thought and that sentiment, I want to thank you, and thank you all for your support. and I will be very happy to see rainbows above Albany.
Okay, so we take up matter 5-14, which is the pride flag raising planned for June 28th, 2019. Vice Mayor McQuaid and I both recommend that the pride flag be displayed over City Hall and at the Albany Shrine of Freedom Pocket Park and by the way, we have a third flag which we're proposing to be flown at the community center. So let's add that to this item. In conformance with regulations governing the display of flags beginning on June 28, 2019, and that the flags remain flying through June 30th, 2019, in observance of Albany Pride Days. And also that the City Council approve the mayor's statement to be made in connection with the raising of the flag, which is in your packet. This is a statement to be made on the 28th, but I wanted to run it by the whole council to be sure, since it's really on behalf of the city of Albany, that everyone was comfortable with it. So do we have any questions or comments? No questions from the city council. Do we have comments?
No questions, but I have a
Okay.
comment. Great idea.
Thank you. Thank you. Do we have any comments from the audience? Does anyone want to speak on this item? Okay, I see none. We had Judy's comments on the ceremonial matter, so I think unless anyone has further comments, we can take a motion.
This is part of consent.
I pulled it and then said we would do this
Okay.
first.
No, okay. I move 514.
I'd like it, I would like to be voted on separately because of its,
Second.
okay, can we have a roll call?
Councilmember Barnes?
Yes.
Councilmember Moss?
Yes.
Councilmember Pilch?
Yes.
Vice Mayor McQuaid?
Yes.
Mayor Nason?
Yes, thank you. Okay, so we can go to, thank you very much. We can go to the rest of the consent calendar, starting with 5-8. And we'll take a moment for people to go if they wish. Okay, I pulled this because I wanted to make the point that the budget is both a policy document for the council and guidance for staff. It's important to adopt it today so it is ready to go into effect on July 1st. But I want to emphasize that, at least from my perspective, this is essentially a provisional budget for the staff to be able to go forward, but I hope that we will revisit it when we take up the CIP budgeting in the fall. The reason I am emphasizing this is that I would like to see a CIP recommendation from staff and proposals from the council that are constrained by budgetary reality, but not necessarily by our adopted budget. In other words, by adopting this budget, we're not saying that additional CIP projects that cannot be encompassed by this budget may not be proposed or considered. So in the fall, we may make budget changes to accommodate the CIP as necessary. There is a policy decision embedded in this budget to do more for the CIP because it provides for the additional position for the project, for the administrator who will help the planning and implementation to go, and grants and so forth to go more smoothly. So that was why I pulled that. And if anyone has any comments, you're welcome to. Sure.
To be clear, what you're saying is that this budget document does not address the CIP. It's the operating budget. So the CIP will be taken up as a separate item.
Yeah, but it's a little bit more than that, because there is a tendency when you have a budget, and then you look, then you do your update to the CIP, you tend to say, well, you know, we'd like to do more on various projects, but we might not have the staffing to make it happen. If we need to make adjustments to the budget in order to make additional CIP projects possible, I want that to be something that could be placed on the table and that the staff could think about in the meantime. So just trying to be sure we're not constraining ourselves, we're just going forward. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah. All right, so we adopt this budget for July 1, the beginning of the fiscal year. What's the timing for us approving the CIP?
You can really do that at any time. Additional appropriations can be made by the council at any point in the year.
So have we historically done some sort of budget revision to get current, expenses and revenues? In other words, are we suggesting we're going to do a budget update so that we're informed going into the CIP process?
With a 2-year budget, you'll have a review each year and also a mid-year budget review. So there will be ample opportunities to make any adjustments to this budget as needed.
So we're doing the CIP process after January?
Yeah, we'll have it in the fall of 2019. So actually before January, this fall, 2019. It'll be an update of projects to date as well as identification of funding sources and projects and priorities.
So we're going to update the budget after 1 quarter?
So the CIP budget is a completely separate budget from the operating budget. They don't necessarily even touch the same funds. So there may be sources of funds outside of what you're looking at now that are considered when we adopt the CIP budget. So they aren't really, except for staffing, they aren't really connected that way. CIP isn't constrained by what we adopt here, except for in what staff is able to do. But when we bring you the CIP budget, it won't necessarily change the operating budget. It will just be, here's the sources of funds that we have available for capital improvements, and this is what we would like to do.
Well, the way I sort of visualize the CIP process is we have a list of projects, and you sort of rank order them in priority of importance, and you pour the money in until you run out, and that's where you cut off the projects. Okay, that might be simplistic, but here's my question. Let's say, hypothetically, we have some huge operating budget surplus. Can we legally transfer that money to the CIP budget to grab on and capture a few more projects?
So you can take general fund money and do whatever you want with it. It's going the other way that you can't do. And I also look at all of our money as in buckets, so it's okay.
I know the bucket thing. That's why we pay you the big bucks out of certain buckets. Okay.
Okay. So, and by the way, that's really, I just pulled it to offer that perspective, not to try to give staff direction. Go ahead.
Okay, so a couple more comments on the budget. I was unfortunately not able to make the last council meeting. I don't have detailed comments other than to the extent that we're funding the community development department more and recreational services perhaps a little less, I think we're going in the right direction. I think the community development department is the economic engine for the city, and we need to fund it well. And certainly people in our city love our recreation programs, and we need to support the seniors as well. But I think we ought to take an increasingly closer look at the money we do spend on recreational items and whether or not we can recoup that in some way with larger fees or by joining with another city, perhaps, so that we do not, so that we put our money in the right place, we make the right priorities, which in my mind is funding the Community Development Department and Public Works well. And then just a question, I assume that this item that we're going to vote on now does not include the bulb budget items, since that's a separate agenda item. Just wanted to make that clear. We're voting on everything except the bulb budget items.
That's right, everything except the bulb here.
Those are my comments for 5.8. Thank you.
Can I ask a clarifying question on that then? I thought the 300,000 was part of the regular budget. And now I understand today we're looking at it divided up a little bit, but wasn't the 300,000 it's in the budget, right?
It certainly can be in the budget. Right now, it's held in a reserve account based on direction previously. It was intended for CEQA, and now it's basically on hold until the council gives further direction to staff.
Anything else from council? Does anyone in the public want to comment on the budget? Okay, then that will be part of the consent calendar. Let's go on to 510. I think Councilmember Pilch pulled this.
Okay, one moment. 510 is, you caught me a little flat-footed. 510 is,
Albany Hill.
Right. So I had some correspondence already with staff on this one. I'll note that I was interested to see in the report that if we did not increase a certain tax by the amount we were allowed to increase it in 1 year, then the next year we could still apply that increase in that subsequent year. In other words, if we were allowed to increase the tax by 1%, but we declined, we didn't do it, then the next year we were also allowed to increase the tax by 1%. We could actually increase it by 2% because we could use the accumulated adjustment or accumulated percentage. Then that's correct? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And so my question to staff was, and I'm not sure if I wasn't sure if I got the right answer. I was reading it very quickly, but what I wanted to know is, were there any accumulations or any percentages that we did not take advantage of in previous years that are not reflected in here? In other words, was there a 5% in 1 year we declined to take that's available to us this year?
My understanding is that we've increased the maximum rate every year. We have the past few years. I did not go back from inception.
Okay.
But yeah, my understanding is that we have increased it each year.
Okay, that might be something for us to keep really good track of if we run into a real jam and we need that percentage increase. It'd be helpful to know if we have something we haven't taken advantage of in previous years.
So just because we've increased the maximum rate does not necessarily mean that we've increased the tax that's levied. The library assessments are a good example of this. Each year you have authorized the increase of the maximum rate, but we don't actually assess the maximum rate.
Oh, that's very interesting. Can you say a little bit more about that? I don't quite get it.
So specifically with the library, we don't necessarily need to assess the maximum rate.
Oh, I see. So that we have a ceiling. I mean, we set the we say that we can assess at this rate,
Right.
And then we choose to not assess at that rate based on
Correct.
the needs for the library.
Right.
Okay. But if for some reason there was a large outlay required, we could increase the assessment at any time, or?
Well, for a tax bill.
For a tax, okay, for one of the half-yearly tax bills?
Well, it has to be done at the beginning of the tax year. So
okay.
Generally, we adopt these around the same time as the budget because we have to get them to the county by August 1st, I think.
I see. So if one year we're allowed to assess, I'm throwing out a random number, 120, and then we only decide to assess 100, and then there's some outlay we realize, the next year we can go ahead and assess at 120, maybe plus a little more because we've got a little percentage increase on top of that. Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. That's all I had on that one. I just wanted to clarify.
Thank you. Does anyone else have questions or comments on this particular item? Anyone from the audience?
I do have a speaker card.
You have a speaker card. Okay.
Hello, welcome to the annual rate setting. It's come to my attention that the sanitary sewer service charge is actually a fee, not a tax. And as such, it should be calibrated to the cost of providing a sewer connection and a sewer main to each residence and each business. The charge is the same for houses as it is for condominiums and apartments. Clearly, it costs much more to provide a sewer main and a lateral to a single residence than it does to a multifamily building. So you can think of, for instance, the development that's proposed at Cleveland and Washington, which has 60 units. It will probably have one sewer connection, maybe two. That's equivalent of about 2 blocks worth of houses. So that would be about 1,200 feet of sewer main to serve the same number of residences in house form with 60 separate connections. So as a fee, and my understanding of the law around a fee is supposed to, unlike a tax, a fee is supposed to be calibrated to provide an equivalent monetary benefit back to the payee or the payor. I don't think that's the case the way it's currently structured. So I would ask for there to be an engineering analysis to calibrate the economics of that properly so that residences are actually charged by category an appropriate amount. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not sure if that was a question or a comment, but let's take it as a question. Can we hear the staff perspective on that, or?
So within the last 5 years, we did a sewer rate study, and my understanding is that we do plan on doing another one in the near future. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's then encourage people to take a look at the sewer rate study before we consider further development of multifamily that may have some break coming to them. Thank you for pointing that out. Any other comments? Okay, then let's move on to 5-13. This is the resolution opposing the BNSF line proposal to reactivate track in Miller Knox Regional Shoreline Park. And again, I think that was yours.
Yeah, just briefly, I just requested that we vote separately on that item because I did not have enough time to form an opinion on it. It seems like a reasonable thing, but I'd rather take it as a separate vote on which I'll abstain.
Okay, very good. Anyone else have questions or comments on 5-13? Anyone in the audience? Okay. We still have one to go to, but since we have a request for a separate vote, I think we can go ahead and take a roll call vote on this one.
On 5-13?
On 5-13.
Okay.
Councilmember Barnes?
Yes.
Councilmember Moss?
Yes.
Councilmember Pilch?
Abstain.
Vice Mayor McQuay?
Yes.
Mayor Nason?
Yes. So that measure passes, and we go to the last item, 5-15, and this was also yours, Councilmember Pilch.
Yes, so I did send the council ahead of time my suggested changes, although I had to guess somewhat as to the intent of the item. So I may have guessed wrong, so I would love to hear your opinions of my suggested changes.
Sure. Well, first of all, the intent of the item is first and foremost to separate formal reports, things that are official business of the City Council, like representation on the Alameda County Transportation Commission, or the Stop Waste Board, or EBCE, or other things that we are officially represented, to separate out those reports, which can and should be, I think, a little bit more substantive than they have been. I'd like it to have a separate place on the agenda where people can do things like submit links for people who are interested in those, and people who are interested in tracking the history of one of those can easily go from agenda to agenda and find them, and kind of pull those away from things like, you know, oh, I went to the Chamber of Commerce mixer. You know, we tend, because we're giving these reports, we tend to just hit on as many as we can think of, and I think that it slights the issues that are actually kind of official business. I also wanted to pull out the city manager report, which is, to my mind, actually a very important part of the agenda. The executive is a critical position we all look to, and I think that it's important that that be a separate item on the agenda. And I pulled out future agenda items. I think that we kind of rush. It's the end. It's late. We're getting home. The future agenda items is a separate item so that we all give it appropriate thought and consideration as it comes up. So it's just kind of teasing out different portions of the agenda that deserve attention. It'll make the agenda a little bit longer, but it may actually make the meetings run a little more smoothly, I think.
Okay, I think that's what I gathered from. I gathered all of that, and then also. So just to speak to my changes really quickly, it seemed as if you wanted to fold subcommittee reports into that part of the agenda as well. Is that the case?
Yeah, you know, subcommittee reports are official. And the problem with subcommittees, I think, in every organization is that when something challenging comes up that requires more investigation and discussion, we say, well, let's form a subcommittee, and a subcommittee is formed, but then it might never meet, or it might never report. People might forget that it even exists. What this does is remind us all at every meeting what subcommittees exist. It also tells the public easily tells the public what subcommittees exist. So if they have a particular interest in one area, they know who is on that subcommittee that they might want to consult.
Yeah.
So I added subcommittees along with official, essentially official business.
Sure. And so what was added was that that the subcommittees would report on whether they met. And so I added to that they would actually report, not just that they met, but they would give a report. Just a little clarification if that's indeed what was meant. And then my second item was to make sure that we, if we are going to take action on any item, that is only if we have an agenda, only if we have that in written form at agenda time, the 72 hours or more ahead of time of the meeting. In other words, I think we've had reports that have come a little later than that, which is normal. We're all trying to struggle to write up our reports later, but I wanted to make sure that we didn't take action on anything that was written by a council member in that 72-hour period, that it was well noticed to the public. That was my second change, and I had track changes on when I sent this around. I don't know if you all can see that.
I didn't see it until I went to print it. And then the track changes printed, but they didn't show on my screen.
Oh, okay. They show up pretty well on my screen. I can give. Oh, and here we go. Here's some
Copies, since I didn't read.
paper copies.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I just spoke about the second item, which was the where it says agendize written. So the first one was just a report and not just whether they met, and the second one was agendized written. The third was to just give the city manager leeway that she may provide a verbal and/or written report. And the fourth change, I think was, I think I made a change to, that was in the spirit of what you wanted, because you wanted to report on the non-governmental things in the last part, but then we had local government meetings also in there. So I just took out everything that said government and just made it non-governmental meetings and community meetings.
Well, I was thinking, originally, I had it that way. Well, actually, is that all?
So those are my changes. I just wanted to explain those, and again, I'd love to hear your
Okay, I agree with 2 and 3. Those are excellent changes. And I agree with the rationale of your first one, although the reporting schedule makes it sound like only committees that have a reporting schedule report. But you're right that that they need to report on the substance. So maybe, how about council subcommittees report if they have met, if they have had a meeting or if they have met.
that is
All right.
That's fine with me.
Okay, another very good catch. And the last one, actually, I was thinking about what do we do with meetings? Okay, Cheryl Davila asked the mayor and vice mayor to attend a meeting on having a safe RV parking space somewhere in unincorporated Alameda County. And we went because we were invited, but it wasn't official business in the same sense as when we attend a governmental meeting that we are obligated to attend. There's local government, like the city of Albany will put something on. We all went to or several of us went to the Saha workshop, and we reported on having been to that workshop. To me, that belongs with the Chamber of Commerce and other things that we do that are non-governmental, rather than with the subcommittees and the regional bodies to which we are appointed.
Right. And that was not a city meeting. That was a meeting organized and paid for by Saha, I believe. Right?
One at the community center.
So that
Yeah, although that's not a great example, you're right. But local government the city does hold meetings that we go to at the community center and other locations. We go to something local that maybe, the police department graduation ceremony. That is a governmental ceremony. It's something that something the local government did, but it's not that's the distinction I'm trying to get at, is that sort of obligatory reporting because it's a matter of official business.
I see now where you're coming from. I think the wording is a bit confusing, but I can't think of an alternative right now, so.
Okay.
What problem are we trying to solve here?
Well, to me,
I don't see the problem, and so I'm not sure how it's going to be better.
well, here's an example. Just today and a week ago, I attended a meetings at the Alameda County Transportation Commission, that touch on some very important policy issues about our relationship with the commission and our transportation policy and how it aligns with the county's transportation policy. I'd like to report on that in a little more detail. But the way that we do it now, I think first, it's a little confusing that we have reports on meetings attended, and then we have a different set of reports on other business. And the way that these reports are made is not substantive. It's just saying, I went to a meeting. I went to a meeting of the ACTC. I think there should be a place on the agenda where if we have engaged in some kind of official business that bears on the work of the council, there is a place to put important links and for council members to report on the substance, as opposed to just listing the meetings that they went to.
I think the problem is more that we don't give substantive reports all the time. Sometimes we do. I think, Peter, you're really good at that. And maybe, we just need to understand that we should do a better job of that. Whether it's having links, whether it's having attached reports, whatever. I mean, I appreciate that piece of it, and I think maybe we just need to understand that we should be doing a better job, but I'm not sure we need to totally rewrite the whole procedures here.
Yeah, can I say a few words? This practice started while I was the mayor, and my understanding, at least initially, was this was going to be reporting on meetings where whoever went to the meeting was the representative of the city. So the County Transportation Commission, the Waste Management Board, the Housing Authority, the field JPA, it was going to be really kind of defined on those specific things, and that it was going to include a written report of what transpired, and particularly anything that might be relatable. Because some of these meetings you go to, and it's really hard to connect it to anything going on in Albany, and I don't know that we all need to hear about those things, but it kind of broadened over time, and then it was that we're all reporting that we went to the chamber mixer or we did this, and it's interesting, but I think some nights it doesn't really matter. And some nights we have a huge agenda in front of us, and I'm sitting there listening to a lot of meetings that people are reporting on that are interesting, but maybe not as, defined as what I originally thought we were going to define, and it kind of lengthens things out. So, that's mostly a comment. I also wanted to perhaps make one contribution on your proposed council member reports on community and non-governmental meetings and events. Council members, if we're going to do those, if we're going to report, do this, I would say we should add may provide reports on any governmental meetings, as opposed to, first off, that seems a little clunky grammatically speaking, but council members provide reports. But there, may is sprinkled throughout that, and so that one in particular, I don't think if we're going to allow it, then let's make it an option.
Yeah, I agree. That's a very good point. I would make that change as well. Okay, any other questions or comments from the council? Anyone in the audience want to comment on this item? Mr. Jordan?
I'll just say, as a member of the public who follows the agenda, I think it's a great idea. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so on this item, I'd like to invite a motion with the changes that we have discussed.
I'd like to put it off to the next meeting and get the changes in writing, so they're not track changes. I don't have scribbles everywhere. I'd just like it to come back as a clean copy.
I think I'd be more comfortable with that. Yeah.
Sure. Do you mind if the next agenda is provided in the format suggested here? It's not a substantive change, but it would also give everyone a chance to look at what it would look like and how it would work.
So we're going to pull this
And then
to a...
we'll look at the procedure next time. Okay. Then we will omit from 5:15 from the consent calendar, and with that I would entertain a motion, because that was our last pull.
I'll move the consent calendar minus 514, which we've already voted on, and 513, which we've already voted on, and 515, which we are not voting on. So everything through 512, I guess, 51 through 512.
And I'll be happy to second that.
Oh, let's include 514 because I would like to be sure that everyone is, oh, we did vote, that was comfortable with the statement. Okay, very good.
Councilmember Barnes?
Yes.
Councilmember Moss?
Yes.
Councilmember Pilch?
Yes.
Vice Mayor McQuay?
Yes.
Mayor Nason?
Yes.
Motion carries.
So that passes. And we are on to council member reports on state, regional, local meetings attended.
No, good of the city.
So, oh, I'm sorry, you are quite right. Good of the city. The good of the city is for persons desiring to address the city council on an item that is not on the agenda. Please note that city policy limits each speaker to up to 3 minutes, and all persons wishing to speak on an item are encouraged to fill out speaker cards. Comments related to items appearing on the agenda are taken up at the time the city council deliberates on the item. Does anyone have a are there any members of the public present? Would anyone like to speak for good of the city? Seeing none, we will move on to council member reports on state, regional, and local meetings. Who would like to begin?
I can begin, yeah. So I want to talk about all the chamber meetings that I attend. Just kidding. And so this will, since we haven't changed the rules yet, this will be a mixture of different types of meetings. I attended the I-80 Ashby Exchange Improvement Project workshop held at the South Berkeley Senior Center. I attended the ACTC retreat along with Mayor Nason. And that was a very good discussion about the future directions that the various board members and members of the public who attended wished the ACTC to take. I did not write down any details about that. I attended the Saha Forum, which was mentioned in the community center. I attended Bike In Movie Night. Pee-wee's Great Adventure, I recommend it. And I attended, along with Mayor Nason, a meeting at ACTC offices about San Pablo Avenue. As the subcommittee, I guess we discussed, along with advocates and ACTC staff, what our concerns were for that project and how things were progressing. I felt that staff was pretty much did not say anything substantive beyond what we've already seen in our meeting about the project. They reiterated that they were still evaluating options, and we're going to be doing work on this summer. And it sounded like they had a lot of very different input to process and figure out what to do with. So, and finally, I attended the Environmental Quality Policy Committee at the League of California Cities. We had some very good discussions about recycling. We talked about the fact that the recycling market has collapsed for many items, and in fact for plastic there is no market. Jurisdictions have to pay to get rid of their recyclable plastic. And I spoke about the evil of the production of plastic and how we probably ought to just think about not producing so much of it, since it's already formed the Great Pacific Garbage Patch and forms, and we spend multiple coastal cleanup days a year trying to get it off of our beach and can't succeed because it's degraded into little microplastics that you can't even sift out of the sand anymore. So we had some good discussions about that, and I intend to bring back a couple of bills on recycling and I think plastic waste for us to support at the next meeting. And finally, we discussed the bill AB 56, which is a bill widely considered to be anti-CCA. And I will also be bringing back a letter of opposition to the council for that. It's something that our CCA, EBCE opposes, as well as KALB CCA, as well as many other organizations. And that'll do it for me, yes.
Thank you. Vice Mayor McQuaid, would you like to report?
I also attended the ACTC retreat and East Bay Community Energy regular meeting and their retreat. Last week there was a coffee with the cops with Berkeley, Albany, and BART all in attendance. I attended the mayor's conference along with the mayor, and also was at the League Policy Committee meetings last week on public safety and community services. I did write a report today, but since the agenda had already gone out, I saved it for the next meeting. And there was also as always, a sort of a kickoff to that with discussion by various lobbyists about the governor's budget. And things look better than they have in the past. I'll also, hopefully not jump on your report, Nicole, but tomorrow is the Special Olympics torch run. The Albany Police will receive the torch from Berkeley PD about 11:10 tomorrow at Solano and Peralta, and will literally wind their way through the city to hand off to El Cerrito on the El Cerrito-Albany border on San Pablo. So that's all.
Do you want to report on the AC Transit meeting, or is that?
You can.
Okay, well, Michael Barnes, do you have any?
I also attended the SAHA meeting, and I want to apologize for not attending the ABAG meeting, which I had told Councilmember Pilch I would do in his absence, and I was not able to attend. And that's it.
We all know that feeling. How about you, Councilmember? Any reports? Okay, then I'll run through quickly. Vice Mayor McQuaid and I met with AC Transit, mainly regarding the timing for the relocation of their bus stop and related issues. Mayor McQuaid and I also attended a few miscellaneous items, including a pride flag racing in Emeryville and the Black students' graduation party from Albany High School and the dedication of the Albany Middle School Annex. A number of the meetings mentioned, I was also at the ACTC retreat in Saha, although I think those were before our last meeting. But since our last meeting, I've been to a couple of meetings at the ACTC, both the Programs and Administration meeting and the commission meeting, which was today, as well as the Stop Waste Programs and Administration meeting. Now, I would like to make a couple of brief comments on the ACTC meeting that I attended today. Because I think there are things here that the council as a whole should be aware of. I think that we're all aware that we're not receiving our payments at this time due to the payments of the direct local distributions. Because we don't have audited financial statements, and our staff is working out for the years that ended in 2016 and in 2017 and 2018. But our staff is working with our finance department, our accounting, and our outside accountants to meet those obligations, and we don't expect it to become an issue. We expect it to be resolved in the very short term. However, over the long term, there are a few other things that we should be aware of. There is an expectation, there may or may not be a solid agreement, but there is a basic requirement that jurisdictions keep their PCI index at 60 or higher. And ours is we are one of 4 jurisdictions in the county that does not meet that standard. We have slipped to 58. We're still the best of the 4. The others are Berkeley and Oakland, which are adjacent. Oh, yes, and thank you, Nicole. Somebody, Ann? Yeah, put that up for us. The PCI scores. And we have this in our strategic plan. And we have discussed it a good deal, and we will come back to it. And this is part of why I mentioned that if, to the extent that staffing could be a constraint here, it would be something we need to be open to revisiting. We really do need to bringing our piece, for many reasons, we need to bringing our PCI, this is our pavement condition, potholes and all the other problems with our streets into into compliance with the requirements. On the plus side, on the bicycle and pedestrian program performance measures, is that one you could put up? I think that was the other. On this one, it feels as if we did almost too well. As you can see, we're required to expend at least 15%, and there has been some discussion at the commission of making it more. Our number is 93%. Spent on bicycle facilities rather than on our roads, which it's not a great deal of money that we received in this category, but still it could be an indicator of a need for rebalancing between what we are spending on bicycle facilities and what we are spending to keep our pavement at a minimally acceptable condition. And there is one other that only came to my attention today, so I didn't have a slide for it. And this had to do with the obligation of funds. There is an expectation or requirement that we obligate it's very important to the commission that we get the funds on the ground and that it doesn't pile up. And so they have put an expectation that we spend 40%, that we do that less than 50% of our total encumbrance that our balance be less than 50% of our total encumbrance. And our balance is just a little bit high. Our balance is at 49%, and they want us to get to 40%. That's the issue. There are others that are higher than us, and again, Oakland, San Leandro, and Berkeley. Berkeley is particularly high at 79%, but the same cities that are having trouble with their PCI rankings are having trouble with getting these funds obligated. And again, this is something that could be related to our staffing and our need to ramp up a bit on our pavement in particular. So I just wanted people to be aware of these kind of budding long-term compliance issues and our need to get a little more into compliance.
Did anyone comment about the fact that the cities that are behind in their paving also are the oldest cities, and Union City's right there in the forefront, but as is Dublin. Both of those cities are pretty new. They were cow pastures not so long ago. So.
And Fremont, the growth has been beyond belief. So if you're growing fast and you're building new roads, your percentages look fabulous because you've got all these new roads going in. So yeah, there's a lot to that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You were first.
Oh, okay. So great points you've brought up. I think in terms of the balance, I think I might have tried to make this point at a meeting where I represented that ACTC, but being a small city and getting small amounts of money, we have to build up the more money in order to actually do something with it, whereas a larger city, they get a big chunk and they can immediately spend that. So that, I think that goes into the balance equation.
Yes.
So I think, ACTC should keep that in mind. In terms of the amounts of money spent towards bicycle and pedestrian, I don't think, perhaps, I think this is more of a trick of accounting because we certainly don't use only these funds for pedestrian, for the sum of paving and pedestrian and bicycle facilities.
No, not at all, and this is a small amount of money.
And so I think it might be that staff chooses to pull from these small funds for the pedestrian and bicycle improvements and from the other bigger funds for the paving. And so it might not, I'm not sure that we need any rebalancing, and I'm not sure that anyone would say that Albany is in the forefront of pedestrian improvements these days. So just my take on that as well. And then as long as I have the floor, I forgot one thing I wanted to say, which is I did bring some of my materials from the League of Cities meeting, and the vice mayor mentioned the budget, the state budget. I did jot down a few notes. It's a lot of information to take in, but just very briefly, $20 billion surplus, so that's really good. They're paying down debts and paying into reserves more than's required, so that's a good thing too. And there's $2.4 billion new money for housing. So those are all very good things. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else on reports? Okay, then we'll move along to our presentation, which is the East Bay Municipal Utilities District presentation for information.
Good evening. My name is Mona Favorite Hill, and I'm with East Bay Mud. Thank you for having me here. And first, I want to say that we, too, had a presentation for Buffy Wicks, but instead of a gorgeous Doug Donaldson portrait, it's a map of our water system. So I'm glad I didn't bring it. So, yeah.
I think that can be beautiful, too.
Yes.
Are you suggesting we should have done our sewer rehab map?
Well, they can be attractive. But what I want to do is go over where we are so you can have an idea of what's going on. Of course, you've heard we just passed a rate increase, and the biggest question we get is, for goodness sakes, it's been raining nonstop, why do you need more money? So the rate increase, unfortunately, the wonderful water does not cover the fact that we need to repair all the wonderful pipes. So that is what we're focusing on, and I will try to do this and look behind me at the same time. So, all right, thank you. So, right here, that beautiful picture is where your water comes from. We rely on snow melt from the Sierra Nevada, and it goes down into Party, and then we truck it down here. Well, it flows down through 90 miles of aqueduct, 90 miles of pipe. So we get it all the way from there. It's very clean, it's very beautiful, and we take very good care of it. So next. We are working really hard on environmental protection. There have been a lot of restrictions, well, not restrictions, new requirements put in place. So we are scrambling to keep up, as our other cities and other agencies. But we supply wastewater services for 685,000 East Bay residents. And we also are required to increase our protection of San Francisco Bay. And one of the things that we are required to watch is the amount of nutrients that flow into the bay. And I always have a problem when we say that because nutrients sound like a good thing. Let me just say, you flush nutrients. Got it? So we have to, there is EPA requirements that we get to the point where we reduce that every year. So that is what we're working on right now. The gentleman talked about sewer laterals. One of the programs that there is a sewer lateral decree going into effect. You may have heard of it. And if you see the little diagram, The horizontal pipe is what flows from your house. You are responsible for it. When it gets down to the public sewer, that's the public agencies from there. What we're talking about now with the private sewer laterals, they have to be inspected for leaks. If they're leaking, they need to be replaced. What triggers this is if someone sells their house and the property changes hands, or if you do over $100,000 in improvement to your house, which is pretty much anything. So we have, that has been enacted. We're trying to get the word out so more people know about it so they aren't surprised. Cost about, a few $100s to get it inspected, cost about $5,000 to get it fixed. But if your property is older and you have some lush greenery in your yard, it's probably leaking. So just want to make sure you're aware of it because it'll increase and you have to do it. So we want to make sure everybody knows about it. And let's see. Okay, water quality and lead sampling in schools. What I'm doing is hitting the highlights. We've done quite a lot this year, so I'm going to make sure we move through it all. Because of what happened in Flint, we started testing the water in schools before the state mandated we do. So we have already finished our testing. We tested over 550 K through 12 schools, that's public schools. We went in, we not only tested the required facilities, we tested all the facilities. So we have gone through them. It was a outstanding report. Any isolated incidents of lead was usually from a fixture that was easily replaced. So we were very happy with that. With private schools, they have to request that we do the testing. And if they request, we go out. And now what East Bay Mud is doing is we are helping the state to formulate a program to test daycare and childcare facilities. So, and as you know, those can be very tiny and all over the place. So we're coming up with a program to do that. We've already started testing them, but we're trying to help the state develop a program for that. So, and by the way, your water's doing very well with being lead-free. All right, and climate change. We are well on the way to reaching our greenhouse gas goals. We were going to reduce our emissions to zero by 2040. I think we're at 50% already. So, and we're doing very well. Our board is about to adopt a climate action policy. They just read it over for the first time at the last board meeting. They'll be coming back so they can go into more detail. So and as you can tell, climate change is very real. It's caused more droughts, more storms, more intense weather patterns, and fire season is now year-round. So so we are well aware of that, and we're doing everything we can to prepare for it and protect the environment. And now we get to pipeline replacement, which is it's one of my favorite things. We have over 4,200 miles of pipe throughout the district, and some of that pipe, one of ours are over 100 years old, still flowing. But we need to replace the pipes. We have put that on the back burner for quite some time. We're ramping up the pipe replacement. We're going from doing 10 miles of pipe a year to we're trying to reach 22 miles by 2024, which doesn't sound like a lot, but trust me, it's $2.5 million to replace 1 mile of pipe. So it's something that we have to do, and we are hiring more crews to do that. If we have to replace pipe for our main breaks, it's more than double that to replace it. So this is something we're working on. In Albany, we just finished Evelyn Avenue. We are doing the paving on the Ramona Street cluster, which is Santa Fe, Ramona Avenue, and Gilman. And we installed 230 feet of PVC pipe. And we are about to start working on Adams Street, which is 835 feet. And that's an 8-inch pipe of IPVC replacement. So that is about to start. And it's coming fairly soon. So you will have wonderful new pipes there, less chance of main breaks. Okay, let's get to your water bill. And the average resident in Albany uses about 5 CCFs per month of water, and that's pretty good. Our folks east of the hills are at like 16, so I'm just saying. But your average daily water cost is $1.45. So with the rate increase, you will see, we bill every 2 months, so it'll be about a $3 increase on your bill, about 69 cents for wastewater. So, and we had quite a lot of people speaking out, but we are, in essence, a construction company. We have to pay for the increasing cost of construction, as you know. And frankly, our PG&E bill is over $1 million a month, so nothing is getting lower. So, and
Quick question, I'm sorry. What is CCF something cubic foot?
that's, oh, I know you're gonna ask me that, and I forgot what it means. But it's about, oops, sorry. Can I go backwards? Cubic feet, yes. 100 cubic feet. It's about how much water you're using. We bill by the unit. A unit is 748 gallons.
Which is 100 cubic feet?
Yeah, so, and you are doing great in conservation, I must say. You're doing very well, thank you. All right, and this is what we do with your money. We are focusing on pipeline rebuild, water and wastewater treatment plant upgrades, and replacement of our infrastructure. We have, our Chabot Dam was built in the 1800s, so yeah, so we're a little overdue. And of course, our focus is safety, reliability, and water quality. All right, and just to go over, our operations costs are fixed, our revenues are not. So again, PG&E over $1 million a month, we cannot control that. Our revenues are, they go up. The more you conserve, the less we get. But so we have to maintain a balance there. We are doing a lot of innovations to recoup money and to save money. For example, our wastewater treatment plant, we use biogas, and it's completely revenue cost neutral, energy neutral. And not only that, we sell the gas to the leftover gas to the Port of Oakland. So we just passed our budget. This 86% of that is focused on water, 14% on wastewater, and there's the breakdown of capital appropriations, debt service, and operations. So you can get an idea of how we break it down to serve 1.4 million people. All right, and where we fall within the various agencies, we're kind of right in the middle in our cost for 800 CCFs a month. So we're about right in the middle. And this is with the most recent reporting. The information is still coming in. And then for wastewater charges, we are up here at the top, but that little blue section is what we're responsible for, what East Bay Mud is responsible for. The rest of it is the whatever agency is collections, like the City of Oakland, that type of thing. Whatever agency is doing the collection part of it, that's the additional cost. Okay, and all right. This is what I've been trying to get to. This is critical. And so I hope you'll forgive me for speeding through. I have like 50 pages of notes. I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about PSPS, public safety power shutoffs. It's something that's coming. It's not a maybe. It's pretty much going to happen, we're sure of, this year. We just wanted to let everyone know what we're doing. Our large facilities like water treatment and wastewater treatment, we have backup generators already there. But for all those other pumping plants that are critical to keeping the fire flow, keeping the water pressurized, we're going to be putting in portable generators. We're going to start putting them in at the end of this month, and we'll be putting them in at the designated critical facilities. These are facilities that if we can't get there, it'll automatically turn on so that we can keep the water pressure, keep it pressurized. If we lose pressure, then you have to boil water, and we can't fight fire. So that is a critical thing for us. What we are asking from you is for you to go to your community, let them know about PSPS. You've heard it from PG&E, but people aren't thinking about the other ways that it could affect them. If you have critical water needs, you need to figure out how you're going to manage that when in a power shutoff. They may shut it off for, it could be anywhere from 12 hours to 5 days. And that's what they're telling us right now. It could either be longer because they have to check every line. So we're asking everyone to store at least 2 gallons of water per day, per person, in your house, which is kind of hard if you live in a small, very small apartment, but also, and don't forget your pets. And if a PSPS event occurs, during that event, please shut off all irrigation. We're asking you to minimize outdoor and indoor water use. That means please don't wet down the kids with the water hose because it's hot. But we have to keep as much water in the reservoirs as possible. What we do is the minute there's a PSP warning, we fill the reservoirs. But we have to maintain that over the stretch of the outage. So for us, I brought some fact sheets. I put them on the back table. I'm asking if you would please share the information with your communities so that we can make sure everybody is ready and they have thought of all the critical needs. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Okay? Good?
Questions?
I'm just curious about something you did mention, but it's been on my mind for a long time. There was a purple pipe that was coming up from the wastewater facility in Oakland that was going to be used on our parks and some of our recreation areas. Somehow, somewhere along the line, it got held up, I think, south of Berkeley, perhaps. I'm wondering if there's been any update on the status of that pipe.
Okay, so recycled water pipe, and is it for a particular park? Which particular park?
Well, it was, my understanding, it was coming up alongside of 80, and somewhere in there, it stopped. This was some years ago now, and there was always going to be this, we'll eventually get to finishing it, but.
Okay, I don't know, I'm sorry, I have to ask your forgiveness, I'm new to the district, so I don't know, but I will find out. This is a question we get a lot. When are we going to get recycled water to our area? We are focusing on trying to shift our bigger water users to recycled water so they'll leave more potable water, and then moving up the purple pipes to get into for irrigation and watering. I will find out what's going on, and if I can get back to you and give you that information, I'll be happy to do that.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, anything else? Sure.
The PSP warning you talked about?
Yes.
Do those affect each community kind of in the same way, or are some communities more?
It depends on which circuit you're on. For example, if it's up in the hills way far away and they switch off that particular circuit that runs straight down, it could shut down Albany, and another area right over here may still have power. But it's the fact that the potential for fire may be very far away, but it will still affect you here. So, okay. And I had one gentleman say, well, doesn't East Bay Mud get a pass? And no, we all use the same power, so no. Okay.
Yeah, actually, that was going to be my question. I mean, is PG&E talking at all about potentially isolating facilities like East Bay Mud or hospitals from PSPS shutoffs? Or are they basically saying we got to shut it all off?
Right now, and because of the decree from the judge, they just have to shut it off. They have no leeway right now. So,
okay.
And I know, for example, Calistoga, they're predicting they will have over 23 shutdowns.
Wow.
In the year. So we will probably be more fortunate than that, but we will probably have some.
Okay. And about recycling, what are East Bay Mud's long-term recycling efforts and goals? From what I understand, this is, given the increase in population and the scarcity, potential increasing scarcity of water, recycling is going to be a big part of the equation in the future. So can you say anything about plans?
Again, our immediate plans is, one, to shift the big water users over to recycled water as much as we possibly can, and where it's practical. Sometimes it's not practical to do it. It costs more to do it than we would get back, or than we would save. So that's what we're working on right now. Again, we're looking at ways where we can get, for example, whenever we go east of Hills, that's the question we get right away. When are we going to do it? Right now it's not. It's an astronomical cost to get it there. So what we're figuring is how to get the water to you and make it something that you can use. And then, because it's pretty much, we don't like, no one likes to say it, but it's the future of water.
Yeah. So you're saying it's a large cost to do the piping or to do the recycling facilities or both?
Right now, it's the cost of the piping, trying to get it up, especially if there's elevation involved, anything like that, and there's no facility, no infrastructure for it. It's very difficult to do, and we have to go to the public for more money saying, do you want to do this? Okay. And whereas some communities would, other poor communities will not.
So do you know if you do have plans for more recycling facilities, or do you have a surplus of recycled water that you can't give to people, or do you know where you are in that?
With the recycled water, from what I understand, we are using it now as a part of our energy production. And as far as the treatment plants, I think we are stagnant. We're not building anything new, but we're upgrading what we have, the recycle facilities that we have. Okay. I would love to say more. I know I have a lot more, but it would get into the nitty-gritty that I don't feel I'm confident on speaking on.
Sure. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Any other questions or comments? Well, thank you very much for a very informative presentation.
Sure.
Thank you.
Anytime.
Thank you. It was pointed out to me, thank you, Vice Mayor McQuaid, that I skipped after talking about the importance of the city manager report. I forgot to introduce it, so if you'd provide us with a report, we'd be grateful.
Sure, thank you, Mayor and Vice Mayor. National Night Out is around the corner, August 6th. We are now accepting signups, so if you would like to have a block party on your block, please sign up. It's our website, albanyca.org/National Night Out. The police department is also this month doing National Safety Month. You'll see quite a few different information tips from them in connectivity with our Neighborhood Services Division. Right now, it's cool tips for a safe summer trip, how to make sure that you keep your house safe while you're going on trips. The Recreation and Community Services Department, along with the city, established 2 cooling centers last week, and we will bring some policy forward to the council to really ensure that we have a consistent approach, as we expect that issue, unfortunately, to continue over time and probably increase. We also had a pop-up sprinkler event, which was well attended during those hot days as well, which was a nice relief for some of our kids in town. At the Senior Center on Saturday, June 22nd, from 6 to 8, we will have a discussion and a event, Juneteenth celebration event. It will commemorate 400 years of African American history with an informative panel discussion about H.R. 1242, which establishes the 400 Years of African American History Commission. The panel will be moderated by Maurice Cooper, who is actually one of our commissioners on a Park and Rec and Open Space Commission. And guest speakers include civil rights attorney Howard Moore, Jr., who is an Albany resident, as well as Robert Brogner, Chief Staff from Ron Dellums. On Friday, June 14th, which was the last day of school, the police department was welcomed by field trip goers from Marin School, who stopped by on a scavenger hunt and took photos with the police department, and they got a tour of the building. It's really fun. The police department also has a new motorcycle. If you haven't seen it, please take time to come check it out. It's a real motorcycle, not a dirt bike, and they're very proud of this addition to their vehicles, and it really does give a different feel and approach to some of our patrolling, and it's a welcome addition. It's probably more fuel efficient as well. Keep a lookout for the draft of the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. It's nearing its completion in terms of being in a draft format for public review and comment, and we anticipate sharing this with various advisory bodies in the very near future, as well as a public comment period, which will probably open this Friday. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to say that Memorial Park sprinkler turn-on pop-up was wildly popular. I don't get a lot of thank you notes as mayor of Albany, but I got a lot of thanks for you guys doing that. So quite wonderful. I hope we do it in the future.
I did wonder if, after our presentation by East Bay Mud, if we felt a little bit guilty about that, or...
No.
We irrigate that facility anyway. We just did it at a different hour.
Yeah.
I think it's climate change mitigation, isn't it?
Okay, thank you very much. So, public hearings. We have a public hearing on the levy of assessments. Do we have a staff report?
Thank you. This is a public hearing on the levy of assessments within Assessment District Number 1988-1 for fiscal year 2019-20 pursuant to the Landscaping and Lighting Act of 1972. Staff does not have a presentation, but we can answer questions if you have any.
Does anyone have questions on this item?
Well, sure. I'll just reiterate my question that I already posed to staff, which is that, well, maybe I'll just make it a statement. There's really not much to do here. We cannot increase the levy because there's no provision for doing that in the original district, 1988-1. So this is pretty much a pro forma part of what we have to do, and not much else to be said. Is that fair?
Yes, that's fair. The provision was never put in for increasing the rates. It would require a Prop 218 notice to do that.
So we could do that, but it would require balloting of the whole city. Correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
There's no inflation adjustment
There's no inflation adjustment in this particular assessment district.
and it just runs in perpetuity. There's no need and there's no sunset on it.
I can confirm that. I don't believe that there's a sunset.
Would it
to wither away over time.
Would it also be fair to say that these landscaping lighting districts have fallen out of favor somewhat because of the difficulty of what you might have to do to how do I want to put it? The paperwork around them versus other means of raising funds like parcel taxes.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think this was something that was put in place in the 70s, and we found other vehicles to generate local funding since then.
Thank you.
Also, as a reminder to the council, on your June 3rd agenda, you initiated the proceedings for this, so this is the follow-up to those proceedings.
Yes. Any other questions or comments? This is go ahead.
No.
Okay. This is a public hearing. Does any member of the public want to make a comment? Seeing none, I think we're ready for a motion.
I will move resolution number 2019-53, confirming the diagram and assessment levying assessments in landscaping lighting assessment district number 1988-1 for fiscal year 2019-2020.
Second.
Councilmember Barnes?
Yes.
Councilmember Moss?
Yes.
Councilmember Pilch?
Yes.
Vice Mayor McQuay?
Yes.
Mayor Nason?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Very good. So we go to unfinished business, the Albany Bulb Subcommittee update. And I'm making this report. I passed around a written statement, but I'd like to actually preface this with an apology to Councilmember Pilch, who has requested this in the past, but it always seemed that something was about to happen, and it never did. So it's really just time to report, but it's a bit of a non-report. Essentially, I think you will recall we met with the East Bay, and we met and reported with the East Bay Regional Park District staff last August, in August 21st, 2018. But unfortunately, the individual that we had worked with a great deal at the district about the bulb left the agency to take another position. So after that, we tried to keep discussions going, but the East Bay Regional Park District let us know that they were spending so much money on the Albany Beach and on the Bay Trail that they really, they have to be fair to a very large jurisdiction, and they did not really have the resources to be adding another Albany project to their list. But there is good news with the Bay Trail nearing completion, the beach project basically done, and the litigation having the trial, at least the trial phase, is concluded. I'm not sure if there's been any appellate activity or anything, but the trial is ended. So they're making a lot of progress on their Albany projects. We can expect a celebration for the opening of the beach this summer, and probably a bigger celebration by the end of the year when the Bay Trail is completed. So as a subcommittee, we were because of the lack of engagement with the East Bay Regional Park District, we were recommending that the staff start giving us things that need to be done out on the bulb and getting them done, rather than waiting for some grander partnership with the East Bay Regional Park District to give us guidance on next steps, that we would take immediate next steps, in particular with regard to safety. We've put out some signs out there to sign some safety hazards, but it's really better to get rid of safety hazards than just to put signs. So we were suggesting that we go ahead and do some of the things that need to be done. But there is news, and there is more responsiveness from the agency. They have obtained a significant grant from Caltrans to do shoreline stabilization along the waterfront, including the Albany waterfront. The intent of the grant is to protect the Bay Trail. We can't really work the bulb into that framework for a couple of reasons. The grant is not to us, it's to the East Bay Regional Park District. And although the transition study suggests that part of our plan be a spur of the Bay Trail out to the bulb, the Bay Trail itself is not really threatened by the bulb problems. But it makes all the sense in the world to look at all of the segments of a shoreline in a single process. So there may be possibilities for grant funding that could be paired with the Caltrans grant. The consultant working on the Caltrans grant is WRT, which did the work on our transition study. So it looks like there may be an opportunity here for the city and East Bay Regional Park District to partner, and the Park District seems more interested in partnering with us than it did in the past. And there's not a great deal more, but with fingers crossed, we will be meeting with the district in the not too distant future, and when that happens, we'll give a full report. Any questions or comments? Okay.
Well, I have comments, but no questions.
Sure.
Great to hear that a meeting might happen soon. That would be good news. I think I have a concern that we had a public process around the bulb improvements, which was focused around the study that was done. And I think the public was very aware of what happened at that time and was engaged. And since that time, we've had mostly silence, and then the committee, trying to meet with the district and not reporting in a timely manner to the council. And I feel like, I appreciate your work, and I do hope this meeting happens, but I think this item is also about dedicating certain monies to a certain budget to the improvements, and I think that would be premature. Given the lack of public process, or given the lack of reporting to the public that what they thought was going to happen, which was we were going to go ahead and try to get grant funds for an actual plan for the park and actually do the park as presented in that study, that's probably not going to happen, at least not anytime soon. So I think that we owe the public another meeting to say, hey, this is where we are. We don't necessarily want to be in this position, but this is where we are based on East Bay Regional Park District's priorities. But what we can do is this. What does the public think? So that's my concern around this.
Yeah, no, that's a very valid concern, and there's a lot of ambiguity. The transition study was a study. And it says in the transition study, this study should be a jumping off point for a plan. But over time, the language started to change, and we started calling it a transition plan. And the focus for the really big issues with the bulb are its fragility, especially in the case of sea level rise. Well, not the case, sea level rise is already happening. But the plan, and when we met with the East Bay Regional Park District, we pointed out that the transition study calls for a variety of facilities that Albany is not interested in having and maintaining should it retain the bulb. Various stairways and trails and a boardwalk, and those stairs and boardwalk in particular would be quite expensive to maintain and keep that up. So we pointed out to them, and we told them we're willing to include those in our plan and to build them with funding. If we have funding or can get grant funding, we're good with that. But we really can't do that unless we have some rock-solid agreement that you're going to take it on and you're going to maintain and take care of those items. And the response was, well, that's a good point. We'll get back to you. And the person who was supposed to get back with us was no longer at the agency.
Is that Bob Nesbitt? Or?
Yes. And then another person, who shall go nameless, that I spoke to just recently said, oh my goodness, we wouldn't want that either. That wouldn't be part of a plan that we would want. So it turned out that
what we thought were these differing visions of the plan might not have been differing, but we didn't have anybody to sit down with us and talk about what a plan would look like. And all of this seemed like kind of trivial items in light of what really needs to be done, which is tens of millions of dollars of shoreline stabilization to make sure that the bulb is sustainable over the long term and that it's not lost as sea level rise occurs and changes in the weather and whatnot make this process, which is already a rising risk, even riskier over time.
Yeah, so I think that one of the problems with, as you mentioned, the plan was not a plan. It was a study. Yes. And unfortunately, the study produced what looked like plans. And I think the public took them as plans, like, oh, this is how we're going to do the bulb park. And then I would get questions from the public about how's that park coming? You know, how's the work going? And I think we just owe it to the community to say that, you know, it's more, I'm sorry, but it's more complicated than that, unfortunately. And here's what our current thinking is to dedicate this money. So I think that we can dedicate this money at any time, as was pointed out by staff, is we can make budget revisions at any time. I'd not be in favor of dedicating this money now without more public outreach.
Okay, I'm absolutely, and I think that one thing to tell people when they say, "How is that park coming?" is it's an absolutely fabulous park. I mean, the city has done the crucial thing, which is that it has instituted patrolling so that it's a safe place to enjoy, and people should get out there and enjoy it. Love the Bulb has done some lovely things. Right now, it's a kind of an outdoor art gallery out there, and people should be encouraged to go explore. The only thing that I would say we might want to do immediately, even before, you know, anything involving the Park District is a long-term thing, but things that involve safety, things that could, areas that are deteriorating, that could pose dangers, those are things that I think that we would like to be sure that that our budget allows us to prioritize and go ahead and do.
Yeah, sounds reasonable.
Okay. Anything else? We have new business, other business, announcement of events, and future agenda items. Does anyone wish to, does council or staff wish to make announcements or requests for future agenda items? Seeing none, I will mention one event, which is, I hope you'll all join me. The Pride flag will be raised in the morning at City Hall, and I assume in the morning at the community center as well. But we will raise it at 5 p.m. on June 28th at the Shrine of Freedom, and I hope everyone will consider joining for that. And then we have upcoming city events listed here and upcoming city meetings. I won't go through them, but encourage people to look them over. And we'll adjourn tonight in memory of two people who were not, did not live their lives in Albany, but they grew up here. They were educated here, and they were well educated, and they were wonderful people and terribly missed by a great many of us here. One is Dave Mahon, who was a 1988 graduate of Albany High School, and the other is Ed Hazrabedian, who was a contemporary of mine, a little bit older, but he was also a graduate of Albany High School. And I won't go through biographical information because they both grew up and moved away, but they're held in a lot of people's hearts, and let's take a moment to remember them. And with that, we are adjourned.